The rope was still swinging when they came to tell me. The 3rd of July, 1951. My nephew Jimmy was hanging from that old oak tree in Riverside Park, and the police were calling it suicide. 22 years old, scholarship to Columbia University, future brighter than most men ever dream of having. But Jimmy made one mistake. He'd fallen in love with the wrong girl, a white girl. And in 1951, that was still a death sentence in some parts of New York. I am Ellsworth Johnson, but these streets know me as Bumpy, and when they murdered my blood, they gave me 7 days to do nothing about it. 7 days where even the police looked the other way. What they didn't understand was that 7 days wasn't their gift to me. It was their countdown. Jimmy wasn't just my nephew, he was my redemption. Straight A's at Columbia, studying to be a lawyer, the first Johnson to make it out clean. But Jimmy had one weakness. He saw the world the way it should be, not the way it was. Her name was Catherine Morrison, daughter of Police Captain William Morrison, who'd been trying to shut down my operations for 3 years. They'd met at Columbia, fell in love the way young people do when they think love can conquer anything. Maybe it can, but not in 1951. Not when her father commanded the 28th Precinct. Not when her uncles included 2 judges and a district attorney. I found out about their relationship 6 months before they killed him. Jimmy came to my office above Small's Paradise, nervous, excited, carrying himself like a man ready to change the world. "Uncle Bumpy," he said, sitting across from my desk, "I need to tell you something. Her name's Catherine. She is white, but she loves me, and I love her." I set down the money. "Jimmy," I said, "love is a luxury we can't afford." "That is where you are wrong," he replied. "Love is the only thing that matters. Everything else is just fear." I should have locked him up. Should have sent him to Chicago, Detroit, anywhere but New York. Should have used every connection, every favor I was owed, to make him disappear until the situation cooled down. Instead, I let him believe the world was ready for his love. 3 weeks later, Captain Morrison came to see me. It was unusual, dangerous even. Cops didn't visit my office unless they were on my payroll, and Morrison definitely wasn't on my payroll. He walked in like he owned the place, a tall, thin man with gray hair and dangerous righteousness. "Johnson," he said, not sitting, "we need to talk about your nephew. My daughter thinks she is in love with that boy. I won't have it. Stop." My voice cut through his words like a blade. "Choose your next words very carefully, Captain." Morrison's hand moved toward his service weapon. Mine moved toward the .45 in my desk drawer. "Here is what is going to happen," Morrison said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Your nephew is going to stop seeing my daughter. He is going to transfer to another school, move to another city, disappear from our lives. If he doesn't, things are going to get very unpleasant for him. And if I say no?" Morrison smiled. And it was the coldest smile I'd ever seen. "Then you'll learn what happens when coloreds forget their place." He left my office, but his threat stayed in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. I called Jimmy that night. When he arrived, I could see Catherine's lipstick on his collar, smell her perfume. They'd been together, probably making plans for a future that would never come. "Jimmy, you need to listen to me carefully," I began. "Captain Morrison came to see me today. This thing with his daughter, it is going to get you killed." Jimmy shook his head. "You don't understand. Uncle Bumpy. Catherine's different. She doesn't care what people think. Her father can't control her forever. It is not her I am worried about. It is him. It is her uncles. It is every white man in this city who thinks you are trying to take something that belongs to them. So what are you saying? That I should live in fear? That I should accept that I am not good enough for her because of my skin?" I looked at this young man, so brave, so naive, so ready to die for love, and I made the worst decision of my life. "No," I said. "You should be smart. But if you are determined to do this, then we do it right. We make sure you are protected." For the next 2 months, I had my best men watching Jimmy. 4 shifts, 24-hour protection. But love makes men careless, and even my best men couldn't protect Jimmy from himself. The 2nd of July, 1951. Jimmy gave his protection the slip, claiming he needed privacy with Catherine. That night, he was supposed to meet her at Riverside Park. She never showed up instead. 5 men in police uniforms with no badges were waiting. They grabbed Jimmy as he sat waiting for a love that would never come. The coroner said Jimmy died around midnight, said he'd hanged himself from depression, couldn't handle the pressure of his inappropriate relationship. Said there were no signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play. But I knew better. I knew the rope burns on his wrists meant he'd fought. I knew the bruises on his face meant they'd beaten him first. I knew the hate in Captain Morrison's eyes meant this was never going to end any other way. The funeral was the 6th of July. Small, quiet, just family and a few Columbia friends brave enough to show up. Catherine Morrison wasn't among them. She'd been sent to Boston the day after Jimmy died. After we buried Jimmy, Captain Morrison came to the cemetery, stood at the edge of the crowd, watching us mourn, making sure we all saw him, making sure we understood this was his victory. He walked up to me as the last mourners were leaving, his uniform pressed, his shoes polished, his badge catching the afternoon sunlight. "Tragic," he said, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. Young man like that throwing his life away over something so foolish. I looked at him for a long moment. "Captain Morrison," I said quietly, "you've made a mistake." "Have I?" "Seems to me the problem solved itself." "The mistake," I continued, "is thinking this is over." Morrison laughed. "What are you going to do, Johnson?" "File a complaint. You are a criminal. Nobody cares what happens to your family." He walked away, confident in his power, secure in his position, certain that he'd won. He was wrong. That night, I made 7 phone calls. The first was to Detective Ray Kowalski, the only honest cop in the 28th Precinct, a Polish immigrant who understood what it meant to be treated like dirt because of where you came from. "Ray," I said, "I need a favor." "Bumpy, you know I can't. This isn't business, this is personal. My nephew was murdered, and Morrison's covering it up." There was silence on the line. "Then, what do you need?" 7 days. "Give me 7 days to handle this my way, and then you can investigate whatever you find." "And if I say no, then Morrison walks free, and Jimmy's murder goes unavenged. Is that the kind of justice you swore to protect?" Another pause. 7 days, Bumpy. "But whatever you do, make sure it is clean." The second call was to Illinois Gordon, my most trusted lieutenant, a man who'd been with me since the Dutch-Schultz Wars. "Illinois," I said, "remember what you told me about patience being a weapon?" "I remember. It is time to use it." The third call was to Vincent Torino, the same mobster who'd tried to shake down Roosevelt Williams months earlier. Vincent was now in my debt after I'd prevented him from starting a war with the Genovese family. "Vincent," I said, "I need 5 men, quiet men, men who can follow orders without asking questions." "When do you need them?" "Tonight and Vincent. They need to look like cops." The fourth call was to Samuel Hayes, a mortician who'd been handling Harlem's dead for 30 years, a man who understood that sometimes the dead needed to deliver messages to the living. "Samuel," I said, "I need you to prepare a special funeral, very special." Calls 5 through 7 were to Catherine's uncles, Judge Robert Morrison, Judge Charles Morrison, District Attorney Patrick Morrison, the 3 pillars of the Morrison family's power, the 3 men who thought they were untouchable. Each call was identical. Each message was simple. "Your nephew killed my nephew," I told each of them. "Now we're even. But if anyone else in my family dies under mysterious circumstances, I'll visit each of you personally." Then I hung up and waited. The 7th of July. Morrison's routine was predictable. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., he left his house in Queens, drove to a diner on Northern Boulevard for coffee and eggs, then headed to the precinct, alone, unprotected, confident in his authority. Vincent's men were waiting at the diner. They didn't kill him. That would have been too easy, too quick. Instead, they gave Captain Morrison a taste of what Jimmy had experienced. They grabbed him in the parking lot, forced him into the back of a police car that wasn't really a police car, drove him to the same warehouse where Dutch Schultz's men used to torture their enemies. For 6 hours, they showed Morrison what it felt like to be helpless, to be afraid, to know nobody was coming to save you. They never touched him. Fear is more powerful than pain. When they finally released him, they gave him a message. Mr. Johnson wants you to know that he could have killed you today. Instead, he is giving you a choice. You can retire quietly, move to another city, disappear from New York forever, or you can stay, and next time won't be a warning. Morrison chose retirement. By the 14th of July, 1 week after Jimmy's funeral, Captain William Morrison had submitted his resignation, citing health concerns. He moved to Florida, took a job as a security guard at a hotel, never wore a badge again. His daughter Catherine was transferred to a college in California, as far from New York as the Morrison family could send her. She never returned to the East Coast. The 3 Morrison judges suddenly found themselves reassigned to different courts, their cases reviewed, their decisions questioned. District Attorney Patrick Morrison lost his re-election bid in a scandal involving evidence tampering that nobody could prove but everybody whispered about. The Morrison family's power in New York evaporated like morning mist, and everyone understood why. Jimmy's death was never officially solved, but it was never forgotten either. A scholarship was established at Columbia in his name, funded by anonymous donors who everyone knew came from Harlem. Young black students studying law received financial support, encouragement, protection. I never spoke publicly about what happened during those 7 days, but the message was clear to anyone who understood how power really works in this city. You can kill a man's family, but you better be prepared for the consequences. You can hide behind a badge, but badges don't stop bullets. You can think you are untouchable, but everyone has a weakness. Captain Morrison learned that lesson too late. Jimmy paid the price for Morrison's hate, but Morrison paid the price for Jimmy's death, not with his life. That would have been justice. But with his pride, his power, his position, everything that mattered to a man like him. Sometimes revenge isn't about killing. Sometimes it is about taking away everything that makes a man feel important, leaving him alive to remember what he lost and why he lost it. Those 7 days taught me something I've never forgotten. When they come for your family, when they think they can hide behind authority and power and privilege, you don't fight them with their weapons. You fight them with yours. You use patience. You use connections. You use fear. And you make sure they understand that in Harlem, family isn't just blood. Family is sacred, and nobody touches what is sacred without paying the price. Jimmy never got to be the lawyer he dreamed of being. But his death changed more laws than most lawyers ever do. Because it reminded everyone that justice doesn't always come from courtrooms. Sometimes it comes from the streets, delivered by men who understand that some debts can only be paid in full.